Rebecca Carter was a force to be reckoned with in the legal world of Los Angeles. At 38, she had carved out a reputation as one of the city's most formidable attorneys. Born and raised in San Francisco, Rebecca had always been ambitious, driven by a desire to prove herself in a male-dominated field. Her sharp intellect and unyielding determination had propelled her to the top of her profession. She was the managing partner at a prestigious law firm known for her high-profile cases and ruthless efficiency. Her husband, Tom Carter, was 35, an actor who had yet to achieve the level of success he had always dreamed of. Born in a small town in Texas, Tom had moved to Los Angeles in his 20s with hopes of becoming a star. Despite his talent and charm, his career had stalled, and he had taken on various small roles in commercial gigs, never quite breaking into the spotlight. The disparity in their careers had created an underlying tension in their marriage, a constant reminder of their differing achievements and aspirations. The Carters lived in a sleek, modern penthouse in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. From the outside, their life seemed enviable. High-end designer furniture, breathtaking city views, and a social calendar filled with glamorous events. However, behind closed doors, their marriage was marred by unspoken frustrations and resentments. Rebecca's relentless drive for success often left her emotionally distant, while Tom's lack of career advancement made him increasingly bitter and withdrawn. Rebecca and Tom had been married for 10 years. Their initial passion had gradually faded into a routine of mutual dissatisfaction. Rebecca's focus on her career left little room for their relationship, and Tom's inability to achieve his goals only deepened the divide between them. Their conversations had become strained, often revolving around Tom's perceived lack of ambition and Rebecca's unwavering work ethic. They rarely had time for each other, and their interactions were marked by a growing sense of alienation. The cracks in their marriage became more apparent when Tom received an unexpected opportunity, a leading role in a highly anticipated film. The project was a major production with a cast of renowned actors and a promising script. For Tom, this was the breakthrough he had been waiting for, the chance to finally step into the limelight. But for Rebecca, it was a source of mounting anxiety. Her once unshakable confidence was now overshadowed by the fear that Tom's success might eclipse her own achievements. Rebecca's unease was exacerbated by the film's leading actress, Leila Monroe. At 27, Leila was an emerging star with a magnetic presence and an undeniable talent. Her recent rise to fame had made her a media sensation, and her role in Tom's film was expected to solidify her status as one of Hollywood's brightest new stars. Rebecca found herself unnerved by Leila's charisma and the media attention surrounding her. It was as though Leila's very presence threatened to undermine Rebecca's carefully constructed world. As Tom prepared for the film's premiere, Rebecca's feelings of insecurity grew. She was plagued by a sense of inadequacy, unable to shake the belief that Tom's success was somehow a reflection of her own shortcomings. Their conversations about the film were laced with tension, Rebecca's envy masked by forced enthusiasm. She tried to put on a brave face, attending the film's promotional events and putting on a veneer of support, but her internal struggle was evident to those closest to her. The catalyst for the impending disaster came unexpectedly. During one of the film's press events, Leila Monroe made headlines with a provocative statement about her on-screen chemistry with Tom. Her remarks suggested a deeper connection between them, hinting at a possible off-screen affair. The media buzzed with speculation, and the story quickly became a sensation. The rumors were fuel for Rebecca's growing paranoia and resentment. Rebecca's discomfort escalated when she overheard a conversation between Tom and one of the film's producers. The producer, a man in his early 40s named Richard Lawson, was discussing the film's success and the potential for future projects. Rebecca's name came up in conversation, and she heard Richard mention how Tom's new role could overshadow his wife's career. The comment, though casual, struck a nerve with Rebecca, fueling her fears and insecurities. The final blow came when Rebecca discovered an intimate photograph of Tom and Leila, taken during a promotional event. The image, which had surfaced online, was innocuous but seemed to confirm her worst fears. Rebecca's heart raced as she stared at the photo, feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. Her mind raced with thoughts of what could have been happening between them. As the days passed, Rebecca's sense of impending crisis grew. She began to see Leila as a direct threat to her carefully managed life. The jealousy she felt was consuming her, overshadowing her professional accomplishments and turning her marriage into a battleground of suspicion and resentment. The turning point came when Tom was found in Leila's trailer after she had been found dead under mysterious circumstances. The police immediately suspected Tom, given the affair rumors and the fact that he had been seen leaving Leela's trailer shortly before her death. The media frenzy surrounding the case further fueled Rebecca's anxiety, casting a spotlight on her and Tom's troubled relationship. Rebecca saw this as an opportunity. She volunteered to represent Tom in the trial, a move that was ostensibly meant to clear his name, but was also a strategic maneuver to manipulate the case for her own benefit. As she prepared to take on the challenge, Rebecca's mind was filled with a sense of both determination and dread. She was about to embark on a legal battle that would test her skills and push her ambitions to the limit, all while navigating the dangerous waters of personal betrayal and professional rivalry. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, with Rebecca at the center of a high-stakes trial that would reveal the true extent of her ambition and the lengths she would go to achieve her goals. The perfect veneer of their life was about to be shattered, exposing the dark undercurrents of jealousy and manipulation that had been simmering beneath the surface. As the trial began, Rebecca Carter's reputation as a formidable attorney was put to the test. The courtroom was abuzz with media attention, the case of Tom Carter's alleged involvement in Leela Monroe's murder becoming a high-profile spectacle. Rebecca knew that every move she made would be scrutinized, but she was determined to control the narrative and ensure Tom's conviction was a foregone conclusion in the public eye. Rebecca's strategy was clear. She intended to manipulate the evidence and witnesses to build a case against Tom. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, meticulously crafting her arguments and plotting her approach. Her goal was not just to win the case, but to use it to solidify her dominance in the legal world. She would do whatever it took to achieve her goals, even if it meant sacrificing her marriage and Tom's future. Tom was a broken man, his once bright prospects now overshadowed by the murder charge. He was overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation and increasingly alienated from Rebecca, who seemed more focused on her career than on supporting him. Their relationship had deteriorated further, and Tom could sense the growing rift between them. Rebecca's frequent absences and cold demeanor only added to his sense of isolation and desperation. The trial's first day was marked by Rebecca's calculated performance. She questioned witnesses with precision, presenting Tom as a man driven by jealousy and rage. Her cross-examinations were designed to cast doubt on Tom's character and create a narrative that painted him as the prime suspect. The courtroom drama was gripping, with Rebecca's emotional appeals and expert questioning swaying the jury in her favor. In private, Rebecca's paranoia and jealousy continued to consume her. She was haunted by the idea that Tom might have been involved with Leela, despite his insistence on his innocence. To compound her anxiety, Rebecca started to believe that Tom's affair with Leela had deeper implications, possibly involving other players who might threaten her plans. Her mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and conspiracy, leading her to take increasingly irrational actions. Rebecca arranged a secret meeting with Richard Lawson, the film's producer who had mentioned her name during a private conversation. Richard was a man of influence and connections, and Rebecca saw him as a potential ally or a threat. The meeting took place in a secluded restaurant, away from prying eyes. They discussed the trial, and Rebecca subtly probed Richard for information about any additional evidence or insider knowledge he might possess. Richard was aware of Rebecca's reputation and ambition. He had his own agenda, and while he was intrigued by Rebecca's proposal, he was also wary of her intentions. Their conversation was marked by an underlying tension, with Rebecca trying to gauge Richard's loyalty while maintaining her facade of composure. Richard, sensing Rebecca's desperation, decided to keep his cards close to his chest, carefully avoiding any direct commitment. Meanwhile, Tom was attempting to piece together the mystery surrounding Leela's death. He had hired a private investigator, Lisa Turner, to dig into the details of the case and uncover any potential leads. Lisa's investigation revealed troubling information about Leela's recent activities, including a series of secret meetings with a mysterious man. The clues pointed to possible blackmail or extortion, but they also hinted at a more complex web of deceit involving Rebecca. Tom's attempts to share these findings with Rebecca were met with hostility and dismissal. Rebecca's behavior was increasingly erratic, driven by her own mounting anxiety. She began to avoid Tom, both physically and emotionally, and her interactions with him were marked by cold indifference. The contrast between her public persona and private actions became more pronounced, creating a stark divide between her two worlds. One evening, Rebecca's paranoia led her to conduct her own covert investigation. She began to secretly follow Tom and his private investigator, hoping to uncover evidence that could incriminate him further or reveal any hidden agendas. Rebecca's actions were driven by a growing sense of mistrust, and she was willing to go to extreme lengths to protect her carefully constructed plan. During one of these surveillance missions, Rebecca followed Tom to a late-night meeting with Lisa Turner. She observed from a distance as Tom and Lisa discussed Leela's case in hushed tones. Rebecca's heart raced as she watched, her mind jumping to conclusions about Tom's potential collusion with Lisa or his continued infidelity. She felt a surge of anger and betrayal, convinced that Tom was plotting against her. Unbeknownst to Rebecca, Lisa was aware of her activities. The private investigator had noticed the shadowy figure trailing them and had begun to suspect that Rebecca was involved in the case in ways that went beyond her role as Tom's attorney. Lisa's suspicions were further fueled by Rebecca's increasingly erratic behavior and the apparent disconnect between her public image and private actions. The tension reached a boiling point when Lisa decided to confront Rebecca directly. One evening, after witnessing Rebecca's suspicious behavior, Lisa arranged a meeting with her. The confrontation was tense and fraught with underlying threats. Lisa accused Rebecca of manipulating the trial and obstructing the investigation, while Rebecca, in turn, tried to deflect the accusations and maintain her facade of innocence. As the trial progressed, Rebecca's paranoia continued to escalate. She started to suspect that Lisa might be working with Tom or trying to undermine her case. Her behavior became more erratic, and she began to take irrational risks, such as planting misleading evidence to throw off the investigation or manipulating witnesses to fit her narrative. Rebecca's desperation reached its peak when she received an anonymous tip about a potential witness who might have information about Leela's murder. The tip led her to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town, where she hoped to find crucial evidence. As she arrived, Rebecca was confronted by a shadowy figure who demanded to know what she was doing there. The encounter was tense and threatening, and Rebecca's sense of control began to slip away. In the end, Rebecca's actions were driven by a combination of jealousy, paranoia, and a relentless pursuit of success. Her attempts to manipulate the trial and protect her own interests had led her down a dangerous path, fraught with risk and uncertainty. The trial continued to unfold, with each day bringing new challenges and revelations. Rebecca's carefully constructed world was beginning to unravel, exposing the dark undercurrents of ambition and deceit that had been simmering beneath the surface. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, with Rebecca's own secrets threatening to come to light and unravel the very case she had worked so hard to control. As the trial of Tom Carter progressed, the tension in the courtroom reached its zenith. Rebecca Carter had skillfully manipulated the case to paint Tom as the prime suspect in Leela Monroe's murder. Her ruthless pursuit of victory had alienated Tom and driven him to the brink of despair. Their marriage had become a battleground of suspicion and resentment, with Rebecca's ambition threatening to destroy everything in its path. Rebecca's paranoia about Tom and her fear of being exposed grew more intense each day. She had gone to great lengths to frame Tom, even planting misleading evidence and manipulating witnesses. Her actions had created a web of deceit that she was struggling to control. The pressure was mounting, and Rebecca's sanity was beginning to fray. The dramatic culmination of the trial came during a late-night confrontation between Rebecca and Tom. Rebecca, feeling cornered and desperate, had reached a breaking point. She was convinced that Tom and Lisa Turner, his private investigator, were conspiring against her. Her paranoia had driven her to take drastic measures, leading her to a secluded location where she believed she could confront Tom and get answers. The meeting took place in a rundown, abandoned building on the outskirts of Los Angeles, a place that had once been a warehouse but had since fallen into disrepair. Rebecca chose the location for its isolation, believing it would provide the privacy she needed. The warehouse was dimly lit, with broken windows and a palpable sense of foreboding. Tom arrived at the warehouse, confused and anxious. He had been summoned by a cryptic message from Rebecca, who had claimed it was urgent. When he entered the building, he found Rebecca waiting for him in the shadows. Her face was set in a mask of determination and anger. "Rebecca, what's going on?" Tom asked, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "I've had enough of your lies, Tom," Rebecca snapped. "I know you've been working with Lisa to undermine me. You think you can just ruin my life and get away with it." Tom's eyes widened in shock. "That's not true. I'm trying to clear my name, not destroy yours. You're the one who's been manipulating everything." As the argument escalated, Rebecca's fear and frustration boiled over. She was convinced that Tom's betrayal was part of a larger conspiracy against her. In a fit of rage, she reached into her bag and pulled out a concealed weapon, a small, compact revolver she had brought for self-defense, but had never intended to use. Tom's eyes locked onto the gun, and he took a step back, his expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Rebecca, put the gun down. This isn't the way to solve anything." But Rebecca was beyond reason. Her emotions were a turbulent mix of anger, jealousy, and fear. The confrontation became a blur of shouting and chaotic movements as Rebecca's grip tightened on the gun. In the heat of the moment, the weapon discharged accidentally, sending a bullet toward Tom. The shot echoed through the warehouse, a deafening sound that seemed to freeze time. Tom staggered backward, clutching his chest as blood seeped through his fingers. The shock of the sudden violence left Rebecca in a state of horror and disbelief. She had not intended to kill Tom, but the reality of her actions hit her with brutal force. Tom collapsed on the floor, his breathing shallow and labored. Rebecca's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. She had crossed a line that she could never undo. Panic set in as she realized the gravity of what she had done. The warehouse, once a place of confrontation, had become a crime scene. Rebecca's immediate instinct was to flee. She dropped the gun and ran out of the building, her thoughts a chaotic jumble of fear and guilt. She drove back to her penthouse, trying to calm her racing heart and devise a plan to cover her tracks. The thought of Tom lying there, possibly dying, filled her with a profound sense of dread. The police were quickly alerted by a passerby who had heard the gunshot and seen Tom's body. They arrived at the scene to find Tom barely conscious and in critical condition. The investigation began with a focus on the warehouse, where evidence of the confrontation was rapidly gathered. Witnesses and forensic experts were brought in to piece together the events leading up to the shooting. Rebecca, now consumed by guilt and fear, tried to maintain her composure as she continued her role in the trial. Her efforts to manipulate the proceedings were increasingly hampered by her own crumbling mental state. The once confident attorney was now a shadow of her former self, haunted by the knowledge of what she had done. The police investigation into the shooting quickly revealed inconsistencies in Rebecca's alibi. Witnesses had seen her leaving the warehouse shortly after the gunshot, and forensic evidence linked her to the crime scene. The case against Tom had been overshadowed by the revelation of Rebecca's involvement, and the focus of the trial shifted dramatically. Tom survived the shooting but was left with severe injuries that required extensive medical treatment. The once promising career of the aspiring actor was now in jeopardy, overshadowed by the traumatic events and the legal battle that had ensued. As Tom began to recover, he was forced to confront the reality of Rebecca's actions and the devastating impact they had on his life. In the courtroom, the trial took a dramatic turn. The evidence against Rebecca mounted as the prosecution presented a compelling case. Rebecca's attempts to deny her involvement were undermined by the overwhelming proof and the testimony of witnesses who had seen her at the warehouse. The jury was presented with a clear picture of Rebecca's guilt, and the trial became a public spectacle, with the media closely following every development. Rebecca's defense team struggled to mitigate the damage, but the weight of the evidence and the emotional impact of the case proved insurmountable. The courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of tension as the verdict was delivered. Rebecca was found guilty of attempted murder and other charges related to the shooting. The jury's decision was met with a mixture of shock and relief as the truth about Rebecca's actions was finally brought to light. The trial had exposed the depths of her ambition and the destructive consequences of her actions. In the aftermath of the trial, Rebecca was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, her once promising career in ruins. Tom's life was forever changed by the traumatic events, and he faced a difficult path to recovery and rebuilding. The shattered illusion of their ideal lives was replaced by a harsh reality of consequences and regret. As Rebecca served her sentence, she had ample time to reflect on the choices that had led to her downfall. The life she had built with such determination and ambition was now a distant memory, replaced by a stark and unforgiving reality. The trial had exposed the fragility of her carefully constructed world, and the impact of her actions had left a lasting scar on everyone involved. Tom, meanwhile, began the slow process of healing, both physically and emotionally. He faced the challenge of moving forward and finding a new path after the devastating events. The once glamorous world of Hollywood had been replaced by a more personal and introspective journey of recovery and redemption. The finality of the trial marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, as the characters faced the consequences of their actions and sought to navigate the aftermath of a dramatic and tragic conflict. The story of Rebecca and Tom was a powerful reminder of the destructive potential of ambition, jealousy, and betrayal, and the profound impact that personal choices can have on the lives of those around us.